and tolerant, and this includes being patient with yourself. In terms of framework for rest, notice I haven't mentioned rest as yet, setting up the framework. Stay informed, but don't overload yourself in terms of news or social media. I actually turn off my phone notifications. I can't deal with little ping, ping, pings. And also, sometimes we have to quarantine ourselves from the news because it can be overwhelming many, many times, especially when you look on some of the things that may come on, let us say, that people send to you via WhatsApp. You just have to, many times, delete, press delete. In terms of the framework for rest, have a plan of action. So have a plan in place. This includes planning and practicing how you will respond in the workplace. What am I going to do in terms of changing the way in which I work, I operate? What am I going to do? How would I respond if someone who has, I suspect who has COVID-19 comes into my office? What am I going to do? I cannot really run screaming from out of the office. No, I can't do that, you know. It's not proper. Also, very important, how will you respond if you or a family member gets sick and has to self-isolate? I have often thought of this. So at home, I have my own plan, what I would do, and so on. Knowing how you will respond will actually help to alleviate the stresses of the unknown. And remember that you're not alone and that you need to seek support. Relaxation. This is taken from one of my favorite places, Jamaica Inn, and I remember spending an entire Sunday afternoon sitting on that little white chair that you can see to the right of your slide, just looking on the flowers in front and on the lawn. So relaxation. So the second R is relaxation, and we know that relaxation and rest will overlap. Anticipate and plan for your stress reactions. Write down your feelings, keep a journal. Share your feelings with a trusted friend or confidant. So I'm setting up the whole framework for relaxation. Now, I would say some things that you can do for relaxation. Read a book that feeds your spirit. And our spirits get fed in different ways by different types of books. So it could be daily devotional or inspirational literature. Even if you want to read a romance novel, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Find a hobby. This is something that Dr. Allen had spoken about. Gardening. I would say if you want to paint, play a musical instrument, take time to do something different from your usual activities. So your usual activities, in my case, I'm not a cook, so I would do something different, meaning cook. If it is that you are not a gardener, you could try your hand at gardening, backyard gardening, planting some flowers, solving puzzles, do something like that. In terms of relaxation, we can look at aromatherapy. That is well known. Some scents, some essential oils that you could try would be like lavender oil. You can actually make a relaxation pillow. A little pillow you could just stitch together, so like a square of cloth. In it, put some lavender, the flowers, some rose, hops, chamomile in that, and just have that little pillow, and you could just put your head back on that pillow. So the scents from those fragrances, thank you, will actually help to relax you. It's important in terms of relaxation to have a Sabbath time. So in terms of a Sabbath time, for those who are biblically inclined, you know, we know about the story of how God created the earth and that God had a day in which he rested. But separate and apart from that, to have this particular time where you identify a time period that you can spend with your family, anybody who is close to you, I put your family, you know, your friends who are like family, any friends, those persons who are important to you. I would also say identify a time period that you spend with you. The young people would call it doing you. I call it going into the silence. Sometimes this is something that I really do. I go by myself and I meditate. I relax. Sometimes we know that this may not be possible and that you may not be able to carve out an entire day. That may not be possible. But forgive yourself and move on. Now, the relaxation response, the stress response, is a normal reaction to threatening situations. And we know that challenging situations in daily life can set off the stress response. And one way to respond to the stress response is to invoke the relaxation response. And you can read up more about this. It was really born out of a technique or techniques developed by Dr. Herbert Benson. But the relaxation response is the opposite of the stress response. And the relaxation response is one in which is going to stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system. Some relaxation exercises would include breath focus. In this technique, you take long, slow, deep breaths, and as you breathe, you gently disengage your mind from distracting thoughts and sensation. There is body scan. This one is quite popular. This is one that I do myself and also I tell my patients about. This technique blends body focus with progressive muscle relaxation. So after a few minutes of deep breathing, you focus on one part of the body or a group of muscles at a time, and mentally you actually release any physical tension that you feel there. So you will close your eyes. I'm not sure if I'll have enough time to go through a relaxation exercise. And that is also important. There's guided imagery. For this technique, what happens is that you conjure up soothing scenes, places or experiences in your mind to help you relax and focus. There is mindfulness meditation. A number of persons have spoke about the importance of mindfulness. So in this particular practice, you sit comfortably, focus in your breath and bringing your mind's attention to the present moment. It's very important that you stay in the present moment without drifting into any concerns about the past or the future. There is yoga, Tai Chi, and Qigong. These are three ancient practices which combine rhythmic breathing with a series of postures and flowing movements. And then there's repetitive prayer. And many people know about repetitive prayer, but for this technique, you silently repeat a short prayer or a phrase from a prayer while focusing on your breathing. I smile here enough because I remember in terms of relaxation exercises, sometimes you have to do relaxation exercises in the oddest places. I had to do an MRI some time ago. So here am I, the doctor, having to have an MRI done. So I send people for MRI and, you know, say to them, yes, do the MRI. If anything, we can, you know, we can sedate you. So it's my turn. And trust me, I'm saying this in front of everyone. When it was my turn, I took off my clothes, you know, I had to put on a little robe, and I said to the technician, you know, I cannot do this at all. It's not going to be possible. And she turned around to me and she said, you know what you need to do? Put on back the gown. You're going to go in there and you're going to close your eyes. Close your eyes. And you know what? I went in there and my relaxation exercise was repetitive prayer. So I did that right through and through for the entire time of the MRI. Okay, so, and I came out. Next time though, I'll get one of you to sedate me. Give me pharmaceuticals. But I've been told I have a little time to go through a relaxation exercise with you. And so, Mr. Miguel, I'm going to focus on you. Yes. Right. So what you can do is, I'm going to ask you to take a deep breath, close your eyes, take a deep breath, inhale to the count of 4, inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then breathe through your mouth as if you're breathing through a straw. Right. Come again, inhale, just focus on my voice and focus on your breathing. In, 2, 3, 4, out. I'm going to ask you now to relax your feet. Put your feet on the ground. Relax your feet. Breathe in and breathe out. Relax your feet. Relax your ankles. In and out. Let the relaxation spread to your knees. Breathe in. Take a deep breath. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Out through your mouth. Relaxation. Let that relaxation spread to your thighs. You have been on your feet for a long time today. Next, let the relaxation spread to your waist. Let it spread to your chest. Let your arms fall. Relax. Let the relaxation spread now to your neck and your head. Relax. 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 And that is a relaxation exercise. David, wake up. Oh gosh. No, this is an example of what I do for patients. I do it for myself. Other relaxation exercises that I will do, and I recommend to you, if anybody who is listening has an Audible, which is Audible books. There are a number of books now that you can get for free, and they have relaxation exercises. So you can, let us say in the night, when you want to go to sleep, just put in your earphones and you can get some relaxation exercises going. The next R is that of rejuvenation. Rejuvenation to me means restoration to youth. But we know that, that can happen, But in terms of, in the context of our presentation, rejuvenation comes to me after rest and relaxation. And then you get rejuvenated, and rejuvenation prepares you for refocus. It helps you to recharge. It helps you to get ready for the next step. So that to me is rejuvenation. The A stands for activity. You are wondering, what was that A? It stands for activity. And Dr. Allen has spoken about activity already. Dr. Suarez has spoken about activity. And we know as physicians and healthcare professionals about the importance of aerobic exercise, because this is something that we say to our patients, but many of us may not be doing it. We may not be practicing it. So anything that gets you moving, 30 minutes per day, at least 5 days per week. It could involve walking, dancing, here, I dare say household chores. My patients tell me, well, they sweep the yard. Yeah, that will get them into a sweat. They mow the lawn, they do some garden work, something like that. Online sources. Now, what I do and what I recommend to a number of my patients is to go online. There are some very helpful videos on YouTube. Leslie Sansone is one of those. So you can walk with Leslie, walk with a number of the persons who are walking with her. I frequently walk for 15 minutes, really high intensity. You can choose 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes or so. And you can literally be doing this, not necessarily in the morning, but any time that is convenient to you. So let us say it's convenient to you to do your exercise in the night, you can at least go onto YouTube and do it at that time. So that is it. So what is the fourth R? The fourth R is repeat. This is something that sometimes we decide to do something, but we decide not to repeat. We are not consistent. We need to repeat doing things for effectiveness. This approach of rest, relaxation, rejuvenation needs to be structured. We need to have a plan in place so that we can repeat this. And we need, as I said, to be consistent. So the take-home message is to be the best doctor, we need the 4 R's. Rest, relaxation, rejuvenation, activity, and we need to repeat. Thank you. Any questions or comments?
Comments? Any questions? Thank you, Dr. Campbell. That was a very excellent presentation. I'm sure we are proud of you. Thanks. I would not believe that this was the same Dr. Campbell that used to be with me. She has become
yes, when I was an intern. Yes, I remember that.
Now you have grown. Yes, it was excellent, excellent. Now, I don't know what the audience would say, but I think it was good. And the relaxation exercise was so good that you nearly put some of us to sleep. So that at least that means that we are participating. Colleagues, please, if any questions for Dr. Campbell, I would ask you to ask right now.
Dr. Buckler. Dr. Buckler?
Thank you. Excellent presentation.
Thank you.
And I'm glad that you brought up about creating a structure in a routine. I think it's very important to create a structure for hydration.
Yes.
Drinking water. So as I wake up in the morning, I'd have a glass of water or a bottle of water at room temperature. At about midday, another bottle. At about 4 o'clock, another bottle. And then maybe 2 hours or 3 hours before bedtime, I'd keep sipping water. But I tell them, it's just like how the sunrise and the sunset, there's a structure. We need to have a structure set to have our water, because good hydration leads to good health.
How much is your bottle? About 500 mils of water?
It's between 350 to 500, because I may have another drink.
Yes.
As well. Yes. But it's important, as you said, to create a structure to important routines. And hydration is one of them. Thank you.
I agree with you. Thank you.
Okay. Good day, everybody. I'd just like to thank Dr. Jacqueline Campbell for a very 4 hours and 1/8 presentation. I hope you enjoyed it, because I did. So Dr. Jacqueline Campbell, who's a token from the work on the Dr. Lee Committee. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to other presentations.
Next presenter is our next presenter is known to all of us. In fact, I don't think he needs any introduction. It is our friend, our brother, our colleague, to say the least. Professor Reed is the Director of Tropical Metabolism Research Unit, an Associate Lecturer in the Department of Community Medicine and Psychiatry at the University of the West Indies, Mona. He is a former Director of Sickle Cell Unit from 2004 till 2013. Currently, he teaches nutrition to a range of health professionals. He is the president of the Caribbean College of Family Physicians Regional, and also a WONCA of North America region. Help me welcome Professor Marvin Reed. Professor Marvin, your time.
Okay, thank you, Senate. Colleagues, just want to thank you for your patience and your perseverance. First of all, I'd like to apologize for the technical hiccups that we had this morning. We're trying out the new webinar platform on Zoom, and unfortunately, I'm happy that you decided to join us on this regular Zoom platform, and I do hope you've been enjoying yourself. My talk really, it's not so much of a talk as to rather to engage us into a discussion as a profession as to how we see the practice evolving, moving forward in the era of COVID-19. I have a few slides that I would like to share with you. And as soon as we get this up and running, we'll share those slides. Right, so we will have this brief discussion, and I'm hoping to leave quite a bit of time for us to have a quick chat. So many of you would have recognized this picture and this quote, which essentially says, one should never waste a good crisis. So the COVID pandemic is on us, and clearly it has wide-ranging impact and effects. But as much as there are negative consequences to COVID, there are lots and lots of opportunities. And really, those of us who like to see the glass half full, basically what we're saying is let's look for the opportunities that this situation presents for us. So before I delve deeply into that, let me just recount or recap some of the concepts of what constitutes our profession, what makes us a family doctor. And surprisingly enough, there's still lots of debates about that. We just had our executive meeting of Wonko Wednesday and Thursday, and this was just one of the points that was actually discussed again. Who do we classify? Who do we think of as family doctors? I've opted for the purposes of this presentation to focus on what we consider to be the traits, the skill set, the scope that we know family doctors cover. And I've taken the 11 action points from the European definition, that is the European region definition of family practice or family physician. And we know that normally we're the first point of medical contact within the healthcare system. And we seek to provide care by providing access to our users. And we treat all problems, regardless of age, sex, or any other characteristics of the person concerned. We think we like to work, or we should work in a way that makes the utilization of the healthcare resources more efficient. We have a person-centered approach in terms of how we orient ourselves to both the person, the patient's family, and their community. And we embark or utilize a unique consultation process, which over time establish a relationship. And we spend a lot of time trying to master this difficult skill set, which is effective communication between doctor and patient. So we're responsible for longitudinal care. We have what we call a specific decision-making process, which is buttressed or underpinned by the prevalence and incidence of the illness within the community. We manage many problems simultaneously, both acute and chronic. And one of the challenges we face is oftentimes because we're the first port of call, a lot of illnesses will present to us in what we consider to be an undifferentiated way. So in effect, as I often tell my students, we're put in the position where we're looking for a needle in a haystack. But not only are we managing disease, we're actively promoting health. And we're actively promoting health and well-being, as my colleague just spoke to you about, the 4 R's and the A, which is applicable not only to us, but also to our clients as well. So in a sense, in a nutshell, in a summary, we deal with health problems, both in their physical, psychological, social, cultural, and existential dimensions. So having said those things, I haven't established that those are the scope or traits of family physician. Now that COVID is here, how are family doctors in Jamaica doing? Well, at the beginning of the outbreak, one of the things that we decided to do as an organization was really just to assess the pulse of family doctors in Jamaica. And we did it through the form of a questionnaire. And I'm not going through all the aspects of it, just to say that when we looked at attitude, for example, we found that most of us strongly agree that in order to cope with this new illness, we had to have an effective triaging system. An overwhelming or large proportion of us also said that we felt anxious about having to interview any individuals with COVID, whether suspected or real. They also said that there was an element of fear, which is not unusual. As we said, in order to us to live with a new illness or a new pandemic or epidemic or anything, fear is one of the natural human emotions. And once we overcome that fear, then it becomes much easier for us to actually live. And that usually tells us that we are on the good sign of getting accustomed to this problem. Because of that, some colleagues were postulated, opined that they may consider withdrawing their services. And so we asked them why. And it turns out that a lot of the reasons people were considering withdrawal had to do with the fact that they themselves were not well, they had concerns for their family, and most of them were really concerned about their staff and the impact that this disease would have had on their staff. So, in a nutshell, when we took the pulse, we came across with the recommendation, or the observation rather, that from a public health perspective and the response, most of us thought that our public health systems were on average. Most of us had not yet encountered a suspected case, but we were aware of what the case definition entailed. We thought that more training was required, and those of us who were not well were thinking about withdrawing our service. We also recognize that amongst ourselves as a group, that apprehension and anxiety in dealing with COVID in the office was a common trait, despite the fact that we reported having instituted a proper triaging system. So that was the finding. That was the finding. So the question then remains, how do I perceive, and this represents in a sense, the next couple of slides, my own sense of where we are, not necessarily the official CCFP sense, but my own sense of where we are. And I will end my slide by saying essentially where I started, that the more things change, the more they remain the same. So what do I mean by that? So as family physicians, as we said, we're particularly trained to deal with what we call the health determinants. So we're not only trained to deal with illness, but really how do we keep our society, how do we keep our patients healthy? And we recognize that in order for us to do that, we have to have a real fix, a real appreciation of some of the things that are health determinants, both at the individual level, at the social and community level, and at the general macro level, in terms of what we call the general socioeconomic, cultural, and environmental conditions. And this slide really just captures some of the components of that. So as you can see, that even though we're a family physician dealing with health, our tentacles are spread right throughout all areas or all aspects of society. So let's look at COVID. So when I went on the World Health Organization dashboard yesterday, what did I find? Well, they said that to date, they had roughly 4 million confirmed cases, so 4.5 million confirmed cases. And within the last 24 hours or so, they had roughly almost 89,000 new cases. And of these 4 million confirmed cases, 4.5 million confirmed cases, there were roughly 302,000 persons that have died. So this paints a pretty stark picture. And certainly with the daily bombardment in the media, all forms of media, whether or not you're talking about social media or traditional media, it really could put a cause for concern for those of us who are actually working in the field. So, in effect, this pandemic has certainly done quite a few things to us. It has exacerbated health disparities, which has existed from before COVID, but it really has made these worse. And so we realize that individuals who are dying are often individuals who have not received care, people of minorities, and so on. It has what I call quantifiable, not yet quantifiable, socioeconomic effects and the developmental trajectories of various countries. I said not yet quantifiable because it's ongoing. And so clearly as the epidemic or pandemic pans out, we will get a better idea what those figures are. Right now, the virus is just about 5 months old, but we expect that there are going to be longer term health effects, both in terms of chronic diseases related to the viral infection, and we expect that there's going to be a pandemic of mental health issues following this, the effect of the disease itself, as well as the effect of the response to the disease itself. So those are the effects, but what are the contrary components? Well, one of the things that I know it has done is it has accelerated tremendous changes in the health system because of the requirement to adapt to new ways of doing things, to the requirement to adapt us so that the system doesn't collapse. So clearly in the Jamaican context, we can see where hospitals and doctors have implemented triaging system. We have seen the rapid production of clinical guidelines to deal with not only management of COVID, but management of other conditions now that COVID is around. And we see investment and movement in the whole IT platform with regards to telemedicine and the IT infrastructure and artificial intelligence. So we can actually see these effects as coming from the requirement to respond to COVID. And wearing my other hat, it provides us with lots of opportunities for research. So therefore, the effects of COVID is not all that bad. So before I shared with you the WHO dashboard on the effect of COVID, and I share on this slide the global burden of disease dashboard. So it looks funny, it looks a lot of like squares in different colors and all of that story. But what is it that I'm actually trying to share with you? Well, global burden of disease really is a database that tries to capture the impact of various diseases in a worldwide. And the area of the square is really gives you an idea of the relative size or impact of those particular illnesses. And here we're measuring the impact in terms of what we call DALY unit, which is disability adjusted life years unit. And sufficing to say, the point I want to make with this slide is that ischemic heart disease, stroke, chronic obstructive airway disease, diabetes, chronic kidney failure are big squares, all right? They're big squares. So in effect, these diseases will and continue to have great impact on the health of the population on a worldwide basis. So in fact, I went and did a little bit of calculations last night. So on the y-axis, what we're having, on the y-axis, what we're having is what I call per million. So I've standardized this per million. And what I've looked at is, if you remember on the WHO dashboard, we had said we roughly had about 4.5 million persons so far infected with the disease. So if we look at the rate of infection, right, which is 4.5 million, divided by the world population as of May 2020, we would see, therefore, that the prevalence estimate for COVID-19 infection is just about 574. If we do the number of deaths from COVID infections and divide it by your denominator of your world population, you'll get about 39. But if you look at cardiovascular death, people haven't stopped dying of heart attacks. People haven't stopped dying of strokes. People haven't stopped dying of ischemic heart disease. The expected number of deaths to date from cardiovascular disease, not superimpose the effect that COVID is going to have on these. This is just what we would expect on a normal year-to-year basis. That number is still higher than the number of COVID infections, much less the number of COVID deaths. So what's the point I'm trying to make here? The point I'm making to make here is that yes, there's COVID. Yes, we have to respond to it, but there's still a bigger burden of underlying diseases that we as family physicians need to ensure that we keep our eyes on. So having said that, how do we deal with the chronic diseases? Well, as you all know, the WHO has came up with this innovative care for chronic condition framework, which basically has a tripartite system to deal with it: the patients, the family, the community, the health team. And essentially what we're saying is that we have to work as partners to manage these chronic diseases. Within the Jamaican context, we recognize that based on our last health survey, roughly a third of our population have hypertension, and roughly 1 in every 6 person will have diabetes. That hasn't gone away because COVID is here. So in essence, coming back to my theme that the more things change, the more the same, family doctors after COVID is really a sense the fact that, yes, there are a few adjustments that we will make. So one of the first adjustments we will make is that we have to make an assumption that in our office, all our patients that we're seeing should be managed as if they're COVID positive. So the implication for that, of course, is that we need to ensure that we have the appropriate personal protective gear on, which for the most case would involve just a medical mask, perhaps a gown, some glove, and you may have a face shield. We need to reconfigure our workflow processes at our office so that we have an appropriate triaging system, whether it is that we want to make parallel sets of activities and have infection-related things in the morning or afternoon, or we have some way of identifying individuals who are likely to be infectious and put them in a different queue compared to individuals who may have our chronic disease. But an important development here is that each family practice has to develop an effective triaging system. And clearly, we recognize that we now have to invest in certainly having masks available for our patients, especially those patients who may be sick and have respiratory system. All of us must identify an area in our workspace that we can use as an isolation room. And clearly, we may have to construct some amount of physical barriers, provide some additional protection for ancillary staff or those who are working with us. And clearly, last but not least, we now have to be sure that we're engaged in what is called enhanced infectional control. So in a sense, more frequent cleaning of our environment. The other important development that I see becoming entrenched as we move forward is greater investment and utilization of telemedicine. But we recognize telemedicine just fills a gap. It will never ever replace a proper consultation, but it will fill a gap. And so I consider that it is going to be a hybrid system moving forward where some consultations were going to be done using virtual platforms or telemedicines, and some consultations will have to occur the good old traditional way. We have to get to the stage where, especially for those of us who do a lot of procedures, where a viral antigen test for COVID is going to be a routine test that we're going to ask for prior to elective procedures. Just like how a lot of us will ask for an HIV test prior to doing an elective procedure, a viral antigen test for COVID is going to be one of those tests that we offer. And why is that so? Because there's some data that is emerging that individuals who are asymptomatic or have the infection, whether asymptomatic or not, may do worse when you do specific procedures on them. So it's going to be important for the patient as well as for us to assess the risk that we're entailed at least 24 hours or so prior to the procedure that we do viral antigen testing. An important opportunity that I see often being mentioned in WhatsApp groups that have been people have joined me on to, is a lot of complaints that family physicians have. Oh, they have this patient, he has classical COVID symptoms, and the public health officials are not testing them. That provides us with an opportunity. So clearly within our own practice and within those situations that we may encounter, we just need to create a database of individuals who in turn might not have been tested, but may have symptoms, who have been managed with isolation at home. Because ultimately, in order for us to get a true, what we call point prevalence of what the disease are, we will need to start counting some of these individuals. All right, because no society I know of, with the exception of Iceland, has been able to test everybody in their community. And so the numbers of cases that we have, that you see on the WHO dashboard, is likely an underrepresentation of the true number of persons that are infected. So I just like, this is my penultimate slide, just to put a plug in here for antibody testing. So we hear on the medium, in the international medium, and sometimes it's been echoed here by colleagues and other persons, the importance of testing, and everybody should be testing and so on. But the truth be told, testing does support, the role of testing is to support a clinical diagnosis. It cannot replace it. Well, it supplements a clinical diagnosis. And I do not anticipate that we're at any point in time in the future that all of us in the Caribbean will be able to attest everybody that needs to be tested. Just to make it sound that even when antibody testing becomes available, antibody testing in the clinical scenario is not likely to be very helpful, because the IgM antibody becomes positive in the first week of the illness after you've already had symptoms. The IgG becomes positive in the second week of the illness after you've had symptoms. So in none of those two scenarios is it going to be very important for a diagnostic process. It might be helpful for other reasons, but clearly not a diagnostic process. So even though we hear all of this chatter about testing, one has to be careful in terms of to be analytical as to what all of this chatter actually means. And until we can miniaturize PCR testing and make it cheaper, the long and short is that's the only form of testing that really makes sense from a diagnostic standpoint. These antibody things are useful in the sense that it does allow us to get a better view of the seroepidemiology of the disease, but not from the diagnostic standpoint. So I will conclude here by effectively saying, and conclude by effectively starting where I started this segment, which is the more things change is the more they remain the same. So in the era of COVID, management of fear and anxiety is an important challenge for family physicians to overcome. But overcome that we are, as I see more and more physicians are opening up. We clearly will have to work with the ministries of health in our respective countries to strengthen primary care, because no amount of investment in hospital care is really going to tackle the burden of both acute and chronic illnesses that is out there. We really need to have a lot of preventative strategy. We need to have all the other strategies that we have had before to try and ensure that the tsunami or the sources of chronic diseases that we have there themselves doesn't overwhelm the system. So chronic diseases will continue to be a major issue for the health system. And so while family practice must be tweaked and will be tweaked, the overall scope and function of what we do will remain the same. That is, the more things change, the more they remain the same. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you, Professor. Are there any questions for Professor Reed, please? Personally, I have a question to pose to you, Prof. Now, you mentioned that based on your statistics and everything, it would appear that COVID is not as terrible as some chronic diseases like cardiac disease and so on. But also we do recognize that COVID worsens the situations of the elderly who either have chronic diseases, diabetes, heart disease, or whatever, so that when one dies of a particular disease, sometimes there's an erroneous diagnosis, one not too sure if it's just plain COVID, if it is because of what they was having before or something. And secondly, although the number of deaths may not be many, if one person dies from a family, you find that it's a lot of pain because it wasn't expected. If you are chronically ill, maybe they will say, okay, mommy or dad is on it. How do you look at this? How would you deal with it? And how you call it? I forgot. The scenario. It's not easy to take a sudden death. I can tell you that. Very difficult.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Sane. I think I understand what you're saying. So the first part of the question is that we recognize that from a vital statistic standpoint, causes of death, there are going to be some errors there. But the point I was actually trying to make is that although it's really just to put the deaths from the virus in perspective, because people will watch television and become alarmed at the numbers that they're seeing. And the point I wanted to make is that whilst there are people dying of that kind of thing, we're still losing a lot of people from related illnesses. Some of those individuals, and the numbers I used, assumed the rate of dying to be last year numbers, not even the accelerated numbers that we would anticipate for this year. So if we use the same rate of dying as last year and look at the number of days we have this year, so the expected number of deaths from cardiovascular disease would be the number I showed you on my slide, roughly about 600 per million. But the practical reality is that it's likely to be much more than the 600 per million because COVID itself these diseases are what we call comorbidities, which have a higher mortality in COVID infections. So the point I was only just trying to make is a simple point that COVID is important. We need to focus on it. However, we cannot forget that right now, Jamaica, like many countries, have completed this transition to chronic diseases being a major health burden. And we have to ensure that we are focused in trying to deal with that moving forward. The other part about it is the impact of death. Death is never easy, whether it's expected or unexpected. And I agree with you, one of the challenges that we have in somebody dying relatively suddenly from an infection as opposed to having a chronic disease is the fact that the remaining persons that are here will have problems coping or may have problems in coping. Which is why my at least three presenters before me mentioned that one of the things that we have to pay attention in moving forward is mental health related issues, as we expect that there will be a tsunami of mental health issues moving forward. So those are the points I would want to say just in response to that. I know I have a few more questions.
We have Dr. Sonia Roach and Dr. Buckland.
All right. All right, I'll take those first, and then I'll take the ones that I've been seeing written here from you. Sonia?
Hi, welcome here from Trinidad, and thank you, Professor Marvin. Beautiful presentation, and congratulations to everyone so far. Lovely, I'm enjoying it all from here. Just reminding you that what we've been asking for across the region, a message from CCFP regional to our doctors, and a statement from CCFP, which I know is going to be very difficult to make given the differences from territory to territory, but just to present our position and make our position clear. Because apparently, although we are so silent, we are very highly respected, and they're wondering why we keep so quiet all the time, because when we speak truths and we speak reality. Thank you for everything.
All right, thank you again, Sonia. Next person.
Dr. Buckland.
Dr. Buckland.
Thank you very much. Prof. Marvin, excellent presentation. I've been doing some experiments this week. I got a pulse oximeter, and I was very curious about my oxygen levels in the masks that I made, different type of masks. So I did one, and the oxygen level was at 96%, and I said, what, just that? And then I put on another mask, and it went up to 99%. I said, oh my goodness, that's better. And then I decided to test the other patients who came in that day. And then I lowered, and their level was about 2% lower in the mask. And then when I kind of took off the mask, wearing my face shield and mask, their thing went up to 98%. I think it's important that people realize that the mask is just a face covering. They don't, especially for the public, they don't need to have it tightly against their face because it's not protecting them for corona. All it's doing is their mask protects another person and somebody else's mask protects them. So I think it's important that people must be able to breathe in their mask because not being able to get enough oxygen is a stress. A huge stress to the body.
And I agree with you.
Look at it and have patients redesign their own things so that they do not put a threat to their own lives.
No, and I agree with you, and I think it's a good experiment that perhaps we should try and replicate across our practices to get the numbers so we can inform individuals as to some of the potential danger of wearing a mask too tight. So thanks for sharing.
So we have Dr. Brown, and we also have Dr. Allen. Could you repeat the question, please?
This question?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so Dr. Brown Morgan, I wanted to find out from you, Professor, what is expected locally here in Jamaica over the summer and the winter? You know, we're following what's happening with the COVID numbers, but what is projected scientifically here? Our numbers seem to be milder, but will we be able to, for example, how long will we need to do social distancing? Will we be going into next year using face masks? What sort of picture can we think ahead for the next few months? Are we going to get a dip and a resurgence too? Could you give us a more local West Indian type picture?
Well, how I see it is that physical distancing is here to stay. I don't see us being able to make any changes where that is concerned. Because the only way you would be able to change that would be if it is that we had herd immunity and or we had a vaccine. So in the absence of that, which I don't anticipate anytime soon, I would anticipate a physical distancing as a strategy and a recommendation is going to be here with us moving forward. With regards to mask, I think mask is also here to stay as well and should be part of your standard dress code moving forward. And the reason for me saying that is really the same. The issue is that COVID, we will always be susceptible to COVID just because of the openness of our borders. So we have done a reasonably good job, almost all the Caribbean countries have done a reasonably good job of suppressing the virus. Right? But the long and short about it now is that we all are at the phase where we have to open back our economies. And so with that, you're going to have the influx of the virus coming in, and you're going to have some amount of local or clusters cases being developed during the course of in the future. So I do not anticipate, in the absence of herd immunity or an effective vaccine, that we're going to be able to get rid of masks. The variations that I expect to see with climate or with the environment would probably be just like flu, where I would anticipate that during the summer cooler months, you'll have much higher cases than in the summer months. but I do not expect that there's going to be a month or a gap where we're not going to see cases. And so because of the unpredictability of who has it and who doesn't have it, is why I'm suggesting moving forward as family physicians. One, our attire is going to change. The approach need to be tweaked. We always are going to have the strategy. We always, but we never emphasize it or place it in great detail. Most of us are towards identifying severe trauma or acute emergency. No, we have to tweak it towards looking for individuals who are likely to have some form of respiratory infections.
But there was some, I was reading articles.
Not changing, Prof. Speak a little louder, please.
Okay, I was reading some articles about COVID, and somebody said, some big surgeon from US, they were thinking that about August, it will be steadying down. I don't know how that, you said maybe it will rise up to this month, May, and gradually be trending down.
So the point of the matter is that there's no, I don't think anybody. So the question was, Dr. Sene was alluding to the fact that in her readings, she came across an opinion to suggest that in the summer months, the virus, the number of cases, new cases, and the spread of the virus would be less effective during the summer months. And I'm saying it's relatively early days because for this particular virus, it hasn't gone through a summer yet. But if it behaves like the influenza virus, then that's a reasonable assumption to make. But the truth be told is that we really don't know. And time will tell. Next year, this time, we'll have a better answer because we'd have had the data during the summer to answer that.
Dr. Tony Allen still has his hands up.
Tony, you had a question, you had a suggestion, comment?
To unmute his microphone.
You need to unmute your microphone, I'm told.
Sorry. You hearing me now?
Yes, Tony.
Yes, what you said about things remaining the same.
Yes.
I'm making a comment and then asking a question.
Okay.
It's critical because when you look at the COVID deaths, one suspects that the majority of them are also related to chronic non-communicable diseases.
That's correct.
And that COVID is really an opportunistic disease, right? And we know that approximately 70% of chronic non-communicable diseases are preventable by lifestyle. The question I wanted to ask, because I mean, I am confined and I have to be doing telemedicine. And I'm having difficulty about new cases. And the concept, because the concept I'm developing, because I don't believe in giving people medication and I don't know about their physical health. But my understanding is that one of the roles of the family practitioner is what I call health management, where you have an annual check where appropriate, you do an executive profile, you know, the BMI, and so on. So you have a profile of the person's health status. And you can say this person, you know, is well. And I tell my patients, there's only one way you can know you're well. Because you could feel well today and drop down dead tomorrow.
That's correct.
And I insist that all my patients go to the GP, have an annual check, etc., etc. Now, what I'm wondering, when I work with some of the GPs, you know, like Dr. Ratri and others, if it would be fair to ask a GP to say, okay, you check out this patient and make sure they are physically well. And it's a new patient, so the thyroid is okay, whatever. And, you know, the heart is okay, whatever. And with your taking responsibility for their physical health, I'm going to now proceed to treat them pharmacologically, etc., and we can compare notes. Would that be a fair approach, you think?
Right. So what you're describing is something that we already do, and we will continue to do as a professional body, in the sense that we're the gatekeeper for the health system. So one of our tasks is health maintenance, to ensure that individuals remain as healthy as they can using all the tools at our disposal. And some of that tools involve consultations and working with other colleagues and other health professionals in order to make sure that we get our patients in the optimum health. And we continue and will continue to ensure receive patients in a bilateral flow from other colleagues to ensure that they're up to scratch. And so as a professional, we're not resigning from that responsibility. All we're saying is that we're actually encouraging all the physicians as well as the public health official to recognize that we accept that role, and in executing that role in terms of how we will practice, we will tweak our practice a little bit to accommodate the fact that COVID is with us and is likely to be with us for the near future.
Yes. Thank you.
Dr. Who?
Dr. Bell?
Yes, Prof. I'm a graduate of the family medicine program. The question I want to ask is the university doing anything to push or to encourage more of its family medicine graduates to study public health, plus or minus, say, infectious disease as a subspecialty and so on? Because my belief is that there's a new paradigm now where chronic non-communicable diseases will be still on the front line, as you said, but there is now a re-emergence of infectious diseases. As someone who is there, in quotation marks, in the hierarchy of the system, is there anything that you can do to encourage the university to do something about this?
So the short answer is yes, the university has. So over the last 2 years, we have graduated more individuals in microbiology and infectious diseases. Certainly at the MPH levels, individuals are exposed to infectious disease epidemiology. But as with anything else, the fact that we now have this pandemic to deal with and individuals are recognizing the value of these skill sets, there's going to be a greater need for us to strengthen training in that regard. And so clearly we'll be working with the partners. So not only will we be working out of community health and psychiatry, which is where these programs reside at this point, but we're working with organizations such as CCFP, the Ministry of Health, to ensure that physicians generally, whether in practice or in training, are upskilled to be able to deal with the new paradigm moving forward. I was just having a discussion with the dean, for example, when we were discussing about the restart of clinical training for our medical students. And so one of the things we were saying was that, you know, in the old days, we used to see medical students walking around in white shirt or white coat and black pants or dark skirts and that sort of a thing. Those days are gone now. And so what you'll be seeing is our medical students walking around in PPE, because they now need to examine individuals in gloves and with all of these eye stuff, setting up drips and learning the new way of medicine moving forward, because they have to learn and function in that way moving forward. So I know time normally is judged by BC and AD. Now in medicines, we are before Corona and after Corona.
Yes, sir.
We have two more questions, Dr. Andy Shillingford and Dr. Anna Matthews.
Okay, Andy, I'm told you're online and you want to make a comment. This is Andy Shillingford.
Yes, good afternoon, and thanks for a very good conference so far. My question is, we aware that the coronavirus seemed to be affecting persons who are older and persons with chronic diseases, as you have just mentioned. But is there any evidence so far to suggest that controlling the chronic diseases would reduce your risk? So, for example, patients who have heart attacks and, like diabetes and hypertension right now, is there any benefit in attempting stricter control of their conditions now in terms of reducing their COVID risk? Any evidence to suggest that?
From a theoretical standpoint, I would seem to think so, but to say that I have the evidence for it at this point in time is no. I suspect over the next few months, we will be getting some data to support or refute those feelings. But at this point in time, no, I don't have any hardcore evidence to say better control would have been better off. And I know there was a British report looking at mortality, looking at combining several data sets. The data sets for the GP practice, the data sets of death, the data sets related to hospitalization. And that so far perhaps has been the closest that we have had to answering that question. But I expect more papers like that to come out in the very near future. Dr. Anna Matthews, I hear you're next.
Okay, first of all, thank you very much for a very, as usual, excellent, short and simple presentation. There's one question that I've wondered, will we ever be able to get herd immunity? Seeing that we have people isolated, and my question is, when we fly the gate, I know we probably are expecting a spike. What do we do there? What are the long-term plans along those lines? And also, well, I was just making a comment on, if you don't mind, until I come up on Andy's last point, where that is control. I mean, control of the chronic non-communicable disease. That is a tall picture, because as we know, the control is involved in both patient, doctor, and environment. And I'm telling, I'm in a fight, because you'll have patients who have all the access, accessibility, affordability, what have you, and they're still not taking the medication. Where are we falling short, you know? So for us to control anything else by controlling the chronic communicable diseases adequately, that's a tall order. I'll have to work at it. Okay, thanks again.
We understand that the control of chronic diseases is a very tall order. And that's why, as I said, the WHO came up with this formulation they call Innovative Chronic Care Network model, where it says not only you have to work with individual patients, you have to work with the community, you have to also work with the macro policies. So I anticipate as we move forward that there is going to be some acceleration of efforts along those three sectors, both at public policy level, both at the community level, and at the individual levels. As greater efforts are going to be made and greater investments are going to be made for us to be able to control them. I agree with you that the measures of success may not be what we wish, but clearly greater efforts will be made. The question about whether or not we'll ever get herd immunity, I anticipate we will, but not very soon. So if you look from a mathematical standpoint, we have about 7.5 billion persons in the world, so call it 8 billion. For us to get herd immunity, looking like about 5 to 6 billion of those would need to be exposed, either through vaccine or having gotten the disease. And I don't anticipate that happening in a very short order. I think ultimately over time, we may be able to get there, but certainly not anywhere soon.
Thank you.
We have Dr. Bell asking.
Right, Prof, this is just throwing out something. I've heard it being talked about a lot.
Yes.
By the lay persons and professionals. any possibility of research read the BCG vaccine and its possible protective value against COVID-19?
All right, so one of the issues is that we have had a set of research, what we call observational studies, which have pointed to different risk factors, both negative risk factors and positive risk factors in COVID infections. A few technical issues about looking at interpreting those risk factors. You have to interpret those risk factors in terms of how you consider the causal pathway, or what is called the causal link of the disease. So if the particular risk factors that you are thinking about, you think is causally related to the disease, then adjustments for them in terms of your modeling is likely to be inappropriate and is likely to give you spurious readings. But that aside, let us say that we accept some of these factors that have been so far declared in the public domain. And some of them include vitamin D levels, includes the presence of vaccination, in particular BCG vaccinations. The fact remains is that those are observations, and what we would then need to be able to build on is to be able to build a theoretical framework to try and explain how these are related to protection or increased infectivity of the illness. Sufficing to say, in this particular instance, those of us who, or those countries that practice BCG vaccinations, we have always practiced it because we think the benefit outweighs the risk. Those that don't practice it are of the contrary view for the most part. And as time goes on, we will see whether or not policies, individual policies of countries will change over time as more and more of these data becomes available for scrutiny.
Thank you, sir.
All right, colleagues, thank you. We wish to wrap up shortly, and it will be my task now at this point to invite Dr. Sene and Dr. Andrea Pirai to come and give some closing comments. But certainly from my own perspective, I just want to thank you all for participating and joining, and to thank our sponsors, Caramel and Heart Foundation of Jamaica for continuing to support us. As I said this morning, we tried an experiment with a webinar. We anticipate moving forward that many of our meetings are going to be in the form of what we call hybrid meetings. Hybrid meaning that there's going to be some form of virtual platform support, whether it's going to be in the form of a Zoom meeting or in the form of a webinar, or it's going to be in the form of YouTube. But we anticipate that that's what's going to happen going forward, with limited amount of physical attendees. And so we have been experimenting with a few technological platforms. And so this morning, the experiment didn't go as well as we wished, but we will continue to explore solutions. And we thank you for your support and your patience. It's really been very helpful for us. But as we make this transition in terms of how we do our CMEs moving forward. So those are my just 2 cents that I just wish to share with you all. All right, I think they want to present me with a basket. So let's see if we can fix this up now.
Agreed. Thank you for an excellent, informative presentation.
Thank you.
On technology.
Thank you. We're not supposed to be touching. All right, let me do you guys the wrap.
Dr. Jean Williams is saying something. So,
Okay, I can start. Colleagues, we are now on the accreditation portion of the program, and it's the last portion. However, we didn't make this list according to the number of hours. We just made it following the names and who did well. We have the number of everybody's hours, but for ease, we just put it in alphabetical order. And everybody, I will say before I start, that you all worked extremely very hard, and we are congratulating you for the efforts. Here I have Dr. Ann Moore. Now I have Dr. Ann Moore. Sherry, I can't make out this name. Dr. Andrea Purare. Dr. Andrea Purare. Dr. Ellen Henry, I think it's Dawkins. Arlene Henry, I guess Dawkins. Dr. Anna J. Brown Morgan. Dr. Bernard Maraj. Dr. Charlotte Bedase. Dr. Ronald Chen. Dr. Ellen Lopez Gordon. Dr. Gart Ratry. Dr. Granville D. Miller. Dr. Hugh Maris Ingram, Dr. Humphrey Lynn, Dr. Professor Peter Figaro, Dr. J. Ricketts. Dr. Ricketts, what is this? Janick Ricketts. Dr. Jennifer Bent, Dr. Joseph Humphreys, Dr. Lloyd Quarry, Dr. Marjorie Royal, Dr. Maxine Cargill, Dr. Monica Asnani, Dr. Wida Golding, Dr. Pauline Williams Green, Dr. Seni Ononuju, Dr. William Brown. And everybody on this list had over 150 hours. And we are hoping maybe others will turn up. But this is congratulations to all of you for all the hard work you did all over this 3-year period, 2017 to 2019. It was a tedious and trying time. And we are asking all of us to continue to lift the level of performance and continue submitting the hours. All right. Before I leave you, say a final thank you for coming. Although it was a virtual symposium, at least we remained connected and we could speak to one another. Once again, thank you. And I will say safe journey. God's journey mercies go with you. I'm now going to call on Andrea to give you the vote of thanks. God bless.
All right, so we're just presenting this small token to Dr. Aileen Standard Wilson for our able assistance and support for World Doctor Day, Panel Doctor Day preparations. Again, the gifts are courtesy of Carmen, who thank and wish you a happy Family Doctor Day.
Thank you.
Welcome. And then the other one, of course, is to Dr. Arnold Ron Morgan. Again, if you will just hand me my stuff here, and she's putting on her mask to make sure that she doesn't infect me. Because of course, as you can see, she's a happy soul, so she's always laughing. So she always has to protect us. Anyway, thank you again for the support and help that you're giving the committee this year. All right, good. All right, and with that, we now hand over for the final rites with Dr. Farrar, the chair of the committee, who will give the vote of thanks and get us out of here.
Okay, so good afternoon all. Thanks for keeping with us, even though due to computer glitches. So good afternoon all. I am honored to be given this opportunity to move the vote of thanks for this special occasion. Let me first begin by giving glory to the Almighty God for making today's occasion a resounding success. I, on behalf of World Family Doctor Day Committee, extend a very hearty thank you to all the speakers for making time off to share their knowledge with us today, especially during the time of COVID-19 epidemic. First and foremost, a big thank you to Mr. Winston St. Elmo White for giving us an excellent coverage on the key to managing financial health and debt consolidation. Further, we are grateful for Dr. Anthony Allen for sharing his knowledge on physician burnout moving towards solution during the COVID era. I would like also to express my sincere thanks to Dr. Jacqueline Campbell for her explanation on the 4 R's and 1A to be the best doctor. And I'd also like to acknowledge our gratitude to our Professor Marvin Reed for an informative presentation on practice of family medicine with telemedicine in the COVID-19. We are all inspired by your great words. We are grateful and thankful for the sponsors, Heart Foundation of Jamaica and CariMed. I must mention our deepest sense of appreciation to Dr. Susan Suarez Winter from representing Heart Foundation of Jamaica for exposing her theory on nutrition and COVID-19, and Dr. Pauline Williams Green representing Heart Foundation of Jamaica, for explanation on how mental health challenges are being experienced by patients during the COVID period. Thanks to Ms. Christian on behalf of CARMED for donating beautiful gift basket. Thank you, sponsors, for making the World Family Doctor Day Conference 2020 a great success. I thank Professor Marvin Reed for taking the initiative for hosting this virtual conference at the Tropical Metabolism Research Unit of the University Hospital of the West Indies. Thank you, Tia Mariu of the Hospital of the West Indies, for a lovely ambiance, hospitality, opportunity to host this World Family Doctor Day 2020 virtual meeting. I would like to thank Dr. Seni Onuju for her time and energy and doing such a wonderful job in keeping the virtual conference afloat, even through the computer glitches, and making it a successful event. I take this opportunity to thank the technical personnel, Mr. David Miguel, for rendering his time and expertise to making this conference a success. A conference like this cannot become successful with a single person. Therefore, I extend a big thank you to all persons on World Family Doctor Day Committee who are motivated and dedicated colleagues with a willingness to take on the completion of tasks beyond their comfort zone. They are Dr. Aileen Standard Golson, Dr. Arna Brown Morgan, Professor Marvin Reed, Dr. Aldit Buckland, Dr. Maxine Cargill, Dr. Pauline Williams Green, Dr. Seni Onuju, and our Secretary, Ms. Lynn Thompson Hyatt. It has been a great day, even with the computer glitches. Finally, we'd like to thank you, my audience and friends from Jamaica and the Caribbean, for your patience, attendance, contribution, and cooperation in making this World Family Doctor Day 2020 a resounding success, even during the COVID-19 period and the computer glitches. I also thank you all for celebrating the 6th World Family Doctor Day conference with us today. It has been a great pleasure. CME certificates will be available to participants at a cost of 2,000 Jamaican dollars or $15 through PayPal or the National Commercial Bank in Jamaica. We'd like to thank you again for being with us and making this event a success. It has been a great pleasure. Thank you very much. Stay safe and healthy. Thank you.
All right, and just before we go, just want to make the formal presentation to Dr. Seni Onuju, who's the chair of the Jamaica chapter for Caribbean College of Family Physicians. Dr. Onuju, thank you for your guiding us through.
Thank you very much. And thanks to our able chairperson.
Bye. See you to 2021.
Thanks to Dr. Purai as well, our able chairperson.
Ellen, I was standing behind the scene. I was very satisfied and happy with the way, although I don't talk much, but I watch everything. The way you were guiding Purai, I didn't like it.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm very quite able actually. You have grown so much.
There are little things on them. When you make your correction, you remind them and you see you don't think I will meet you, which I was with you. Yourself, Anna Morgan, Oli William Green, you did a marvelous work. Why you
Thank you, David. I hope somebody mentioned thanks to you as well. Yeah, it was really Those things are really, really, really. Versus the rate.
Hi, Dr. Roach.
David, how are you, my darling?
I am I'm good. It's so great.
You're enjoying yourself?
Yes.
I see that.
I was just telling Dr. Anglin Brown. No, Dr. Anglin Brown, that I think you have known me since I was like 18 years old at Mount Hope.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Wow.
Long time, boy, long time.
Really?
Hi,
How are you?
I'm good, my dear. Trying our best to get involved in this thing. Learning so much even at this stage.
I see Tina, I saw Greg earlier.
I'm going to my mother's room.
It's good to see so many of you from across the Caribbean who really want to build the Caribbean unity.
Oh yeah.
Just saying a hello, Sonia.
No, you're looking gorgeous as usual. You know, these days, can't even get to our hairdressers and whatnot. Wherefore,
it's been difficult. Some of us one time, you call and make sure nobody else is there.
You know. Good to see you. Good to see you.
So then we have to thank you for keeping the association alive all these years. Your work, you have done so much to keep CCFP regional alive.
Well,
really depend on it.
And the comments.
We try. We get in.
The comments. We appreciate them so very much. Thank you.
Hello.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Take care now, blessings. We want to thank David here. Let's see David's face. You know, for all that he has done to hold us together and coordinate us.
Hi, everybody.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So,
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
It's so wonderful to see you. Take care.
Okay, David. Love. Love, my boy.
Okay, everyone, I'm going to end the meeting now. So lovely to have you. Thanks for the wonderful comments. Take care.
Don't quarrel. Let us leave. Let us pass this. Come. No quarreling, no fussing. We sort this out afterwards.
Right. Remember